Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, we are back with another exclusive review for Splatterthon Volume 2. And yeah, we have another partnered review with the Toronto After Dark Film Festival. As we stated in our last review, if you didn't see it, we have been attending that over the weekend here, getting to see a lot of cool things. We just had a review for The Deep Dark go up not too long ago. Pretty fun creature feature. Now, this is not a creature feature, but we are talking about Lovely, Dark, and Deep, which was kind of funny as I was putting these titles together for recording here, of just being like, oh, yeah, they're the same two words again. But, this is very much on the opposite side of the spectrum as far as the Deep Dark goes, if you want to compare the two films we've covered so far, as to where this isn't necessarily in that campy kind of fun side of horror thriller. I would say this is more of a thriller than horror, I would say. But it's got one of those things where this is a slow burn, with a lot of build up. I think you compared it to Outpost. What was it? Outpost.
Yeah,
Outpost. Yeah, I could want to say Outpost 31. No, this isn't the thing. But no, this is yeah. This is very much in line with that film that we reviewed earlier this year. It's a kind of a handful of people out in the forest dealing with some personal issues, and some kind of tricks on the mind are played, and it's pretty interesting, I guess. Luke, you want to take this one away here?
yeah. So, like Dylan said, we had previously reviewed Outpost, which is on the channel. I was fairly negative on that film. It posed a lot of intriguing potential, but never really got there. And as soon as Lovely, Dark, and Deep rolled around, I read the synopsis of it. I was like, okay, we're kind of getting our second shot here. This is something where I think Georgina Campbell in here, was a major selling point for me. I was like, okay, let's give this a go. I was excited to actually dive into this one because I was fairly convinced that they were going to do it better. And I got to say, after watching it, it almost turned out to be the exact same experience for me. Unfortunately, this one, you're waiting for it to get going. The pace is slow, which I was prepared for because I was like, okay, we're going to be out in the woods. It's going to probably be very psychological, and that's the route we're going to go with. So, even going into this as an audience, I was prepared for that slow burn. But, I'm expecting this to kind of build and build and build until we get to this really big culmination, and it really just never gets there.
Yes, it's one of those ones again. I agree with you. The slow pace. I mean, we don't have an issue with slow paced films. I know we kind of threw a little bit of a criticism at that with Deep and Dark, or in the Dark Deep, whatever it is,
The deep
getting
dark.
them all mixed up. But yeah, we threw a little bit of that comparison there to that, and as to where that one just I think takes a while to get going because you're anticipating what you already know is there. We don't really know what's going on through most of this film. Like there is a long segment where it's just kind of they just play tricks and hints at kind of what Georgina Campbell's character's deal is. And I think that for some movies that's fine, that's great. This one's not very long. It comes in like an hour and 27 minutes. So it's not sitting there like it's slow that it's taking forever, but it just you're kind of just like, okay, let's go, let's get started, let's really find out what's happening here. And by the time you even get like any kind of a resolution or reveal, I just feel like we're so deep into the movie, there's like so little runtime left that it's just kind of like, this is what we were working up to. Because like when you do something like this, I feel like your payoff, your punch has to be big, and I feel like this was just a bit of a whimper as far as just like that final like, yep, this is what is going on, this is what's been going down. And it's like, we've seen this stuff before. Like it's like I'm not sitting there saying that anybody can't have their take or anybody can't have their attempt at something here, but like a similar concept to other films. But it's like, this is really what you led me all up to believe, or what we were kind of working towards, because it's like, it's not that impressive.
Yeah, and covering Fantastic Fest, we mentioned in our countdown there we had seen a film called Bark, and in there again, characters are out in the woods, and it left me underwhelmed because it's hard to build tension in the woods when you're a solo character with, maybe a handful of other characters as a revolving door coming in and out. But primarily just being a one woman show for Lovely, Dark, and Deep, it's hard to build that tension. So I totally understand. But it's one of those things where you have to have a clear trajectory, I think, because, like Dylan said, when you're getting toward the end of this, you want that kind of bold take. You want something that's really going to pack that punch so that when you've been sitting with that slow burn for an hour, it's going to be worth it. And really, looking into this one, as we start kind of unfolding a series of events, I'm still waiting for that really bold take. I'm waiting for that punch that really never gets there. And by the time the credits are rolling, you're just feeling underwhelmed. And that's really where I'm sitting here. It just seemed like it seemed like this film was almost eating up the clock of we're just trying to get through that runtime, which an hour 27 is not a bad runtime at all for a film. But honestly, watching this, it felt like a lifetime.
It's tough, and for me, I watched this very late at night, and it was one of the ones where it's like, yeah, I was just trying to really get these things watched so we could get these reviews done and everything. So it's like, it's not like I'm sitting here saying it was work, but it was one of those things where I'm like, I want to just kind of really get this one through and get through it. And I agree with you. It was like, okay, hour 27, this will be cool, this will be a breeze, we'll get through it. And it did feel like it was taking a long time, and I think that there's an element of symbolism here, and I get what they're trying to say, or what they're implying. I think I get where this is going, but like, I just don't think it was enough. I don't think there was enough there to really, for me to say this was, totally worth me sitting down for this hour and 27. Like, I'm fine with movies not spelling everything out. I'm fine with movies, really leaving you there with your, to scratch your head a little bit. But for me, I just feel like there just wasn't enough here to really justify, okay, yeah, I like that, you didn't give me everything. You didn't even give me enough to satisfy an itch. It's like you just did a little cursory little scratch, and that was it. It was like, oh, well, I want a little more. Like, you got to do something. Like, I just feel like maybe if they would have you know committed a little harder to what they were trying to say, and like given us just a little bit more guidance, I would have been fine with that. Because again, when you're dealing with a film with like isolation, and it's a one woman show for the most part, um you know you need to have a little bit more. And I think that's the problem with both of these films that we are talking about here, where it's like, Outpost is very psychological. It very much comes into this element of like, what's real, what's not. And there's a little bit of that here, but even so, this one is going for more, again, that symbolic, metaphoric, kind of playing into this element of a missing persons thing. And, I like that, because like I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube with like the Lore Lodge and Windigoon, where they talk about like the missing 144, just people who go into these national parks and go missing. I love this concept. I just don't think there's enough meat on the bone here to really justify sitting down and watching this movie.
Yeah, and looking at it conceptually here, um, I don't know necessarily if this was enough to justify a feature film. Where looking at it, I think this could work as a 30-minute short and really kind of bare bones, kind of get your basic structure out there and then really tell that story. But even so, the voice seemed to be a little bit murky in terms of what they wanted. And I feel like, that idea maybe worked a little bit better on paper than it did translating into film, where you're kind of abstract, but not clear on exactly everything that they're saying. And, that you live or die by that, especially when conceptually you want the audience to sit there for an hour and 27 minutes. In looking at this, Georgina Campbell, for me, great actress. I think she's wonderful. Plays the character of Lennon, so that's who we're with throughout primarily. Well, we see some other characters, but she's our voice throughout this. And I think they did a decent buildup of that character, but I don't know
Oh yeah.
necessarily if they made use of her skill throughout the entire film, because she does have range, and it just seemed like they never fully got there for everything. Again, with this isolation idea, you can really play heavily into when you get in the psychological elements of hallucinations and things like that. And they did that in Outpost. They do it to an extent here, but they never fully reach that potential that we really could have, especially when you're kind of building thriller aspect, maybe with elements of horror. There is a lot to be left to desired here.
Yeah, and it's tough for me to really throw any criticism at Georgina Campbell right now because I think a lot of the issues I take away from this movie come down to just the concept and the scripting, because I think that she's great. I mean, she doesn't have a ton here because there's not a lot of dialogue. There's a lot more like emoting, and there's a lot more of just like her doing a lot with very little as far as like just facial expressions and things. And she kills that. I mean, she is absolutely wonderful. I absolutely love Georgina Campbell, and I want to see her do way more, especially in the horror space.
Hmm.
I think that she does get a little bit more love for me because of things like Barbarian, which blew my mind last year. But at the end of the day, I think that you have somebody of that caliber, you really want to give them again something with more meat on the bone, especially coming off of something like a Barbarian, which there's no way these filmmakers could have known that that was what it was going to be when they were making this. But it is one of those things for me where it's just like you have somebody who I think personally, within the next few years, could be talked about as just one of those really talented up and coming household name actresses. I think that, if you give her, the right number of roles, I think that she's, like you said, got enough range, enough, prominence on screen that I think that she could really carve a space out of her own. And I just feel like, you want to give her a little bit more to chew on here. And I think that it just the whole film I can really sum it up and say that it's lacking in a lot of these crucial departments as far as just story and concept and just overall execution there. But I got to give her praise, at least saying that I don't put any of this on her. I don't put any of those issues on her because she's good. She is really good in this. I think that she's just working with what she has. And honestly, from a directing side, the story may not be here for me, but I do think that the film is shot really well, and it uses a lot of really wonderful techniques as far as when we get into shooting the forest, and they're not afraid to shoot a lot of this stuff at night and really play with your mind there. But again, without really knowing or having some kind of tangible like hook as to what's going on, except that people are going missing, and it's just I can't really get into it. But there is just nothing for me to really be there. So it's like you have like you have two of the three elements here, and you're just missing that one crucial element for me, and it sucks. I was not saying the film sucks overall, but it's one of those things where I'm just like, I can't really sit here and say that I enjoyed my time.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. Where going into this, I was really excited to see, someone tackle this concept and hopefully do it right, and then kind of, being let down in a certain sense because you think that they're really going to go down a different avenue, that they're really going to take advantage of that isolation aspect, and I really don't feel like they did it all. It just feels like you're walking through the woods, and yes, some of these shots are beautiful. Sometimes they fall into what we're seeing a lot nowadays, I think, over the past few years. But overall, I think the shots of the landscape are very nice. And that usage there, it's beautiful, but there's no tension. There's really nothing there. Like I feel like I said, they should have leaned into maybe more of hallucinating elements that aren't there, that paranoia. But I don't really feel that come through the screen at me. So I'm really just watching someone in the woods for an hour and a half. And, again, there's so much here. There's a lot of potential, I think, in a concept like this. But again, this is strike two from Outpost, and now lovely Dark and Deep for me.
Yeah, and overall, I am gonna sit here and say that this one didn't work for me. But I do think that there might be some people out there who really like this stuff. I know, like having a film that does not hold your hand in a lot of ways, and we like that stuff too. I just don't think that this one really gave us, like we said, enough to really want to get to the end there. But I do see this film working for some people and wanting it to, really give them a lot to think about, especially like we said, when we talk about cases that a lot of people seem interested in nowadays of like, people going missing in national parks. That's a huge element to this. And, like that's all very interesting stuff. And I think that just with a little bit more time on the script, a little bit more time, and just trying to develop, where this is all headed, I think that you could have had a more interesting story. So for me, I have to say this is very much a proceed with caution. I don't necessarily think I could give it a slash it, just because again, Georgina Campbell does a really good job with what she's given with. It is shot really well. It's just again when you get down to that actual element of what we're here for, it doesn't deliver. But at the same time, I think that there's still some things that I could easily see this being someone's like favorite film to discuss and go back and talk about, because I think like we haven't really discussed it off camera here, but we if we do, there might be elements that he picked up that I didn't. Like it's just there's just so much left up in the air. It's just hard for me to nail down.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go also proceed with caution. Again, there are elements in here that do work, but overall, when you get down to the basic story that wants to be told, I think there's a lot to left to be desired here. I think honestly, when we get to the end and the credits roll, if the ending was more so 45 minutes in and we still had more story to be told, I think that could be very interesting and see where we would go, because again, this is left up more abstract is you can kind of pull away what you want from this film, but I think the aftermath there would be way more exciting than
Yeah.
what the culmination is of the story that we do get. So overall, I think there's some nice stuff here to uncover, but the pacing, the story in general leaves a lot left on the table. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with Dylan. Proceed with caution on Lovely, Dark, and Deep.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys, well, that's going to wrap us up for our review here. Definitely let us know if you got a chance to check out Lovely, Dark, and Deep. If you think that we're way off base here and we just didn't get it, we're not smart enough, or, we just weren't paying attention enough, whatever you think, let us know your thoughts. Again, I think that there is some talent behind the camera here. I think that there is definitely some talent with Georgina Campbell, of course, and a lot of the cast here did a really good job. I just think that they need a little bit stronger material. So, alrighty, guys, that's going to wrap us up here for our review of Lovely, Dark, and Deep. Yes, let us know if you get a chance to see this film. Again, I'm not sure when this is hitting wide or if it's going straight to streaming, but it's one of those things you'll definitely have to let us know your thoughts. Were we completely off base? Is this a masterpiece in disguise that we just did not see? Or are you feeling about the same we did? And yeah, other than that, we do have a review for The Deep Dark, talking about Toronto After Dark Film Festival coverage. So definitely worth checking that one out if you like your creature features. And we have a few more reviews coming out of this festival. So definitely keep checking it out over here. Let us know what you guys think of these films. And of course, keep an eye out as we are coming down to the wire here. Just a couple of weeks left in the Splatterthon. Luke's got a big video coming out, which I think you guys are going to be really interested in. I'm excited to see it. And yeah, just lots of cool stuff still on the horizon. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.